Byron Bay woman Sara Connor will spend an additional year in jail for her role in the death of a Bali policeman, after an Indonesian court increased her sentence to 5 years for failing to help the victim and for tarnishing Bali's international tourism reputation. In a devastating blow for the mother of two, who has not seen her two primary school-aged boys since her arrest in August, the Bali High Court ruled in favor of the prosecution's appeal that the 4-year sentence handed down to Connor in March did not reflect the seriousness of the crime. Connor, 46, and her 34-year-old British boyfriend David Taylor were convicted in March of group assault leading to the death of 53-year-old traffic policeman Wayan Sudasa after he was found dead on Kuta's Legend Beach from injuries suffered as a result of blows to his head. Both defendants testified they had no idea the victim was seriously injured when they left the scene after a vicious fight between Taylor and Sudasa over accusations the officer had stolen Connor's handbag. Prosecutors accepted Taylor's eventual 6-year jail term but appealed Connor's sentence to the High Court on the ground it was an insufficient deterrent and did not satisfy the community's sense of justice. During her trial, Connor insisted she had played no role in the brawl other than to briefly try to separate the two men. Taylor testified in support of that claim, and said he had acted in self-defense when he hit Sudasa with a large beer bottle, binoculars and a mobile phone. But a panel of 3 High Court judges yesterday found the district court had ignored 2 aggravating factors in sentencing Connor, that she had failed to help Sudasa, a father of 2, as he lay dying on the beach, and that her actions had hurt Bali's image as a tourist destination. The defendant left the victim and did not attempt to help, despite the fact the victim was lying face down, Justice Sudarmawati said yesterday. The defendant also damaged Indonesia's tourism image, specifically Bali tourism, she added. Connor was not in court for the verdict. She chose not to lodge her own appeal, fearing that to do so could result in a longer sentence, a common precedent in the Indonesian judicial system. She also had no legal representation for the latest judgment, having sacked her 2 lawyers following the trial verdict. Connor has 7 days to appeal against the increased sentence to the Supreme Court, but the Australian understands she is unlikely to do so. Responding to yesterday's judgment, Sudasa's widow Ketatarsini said she accepted the High Court ruling but could not forgive Connor or Taylor. For me personally, I believe they should get a sentence equal to that of my husband, death, she told the Australian. Last month Connor wrote to the High Court judges asking them not to increase her sentence, to consider her less role in the crime and the fact her 4-year sentence was a severe penalty for me and my children. I realize that my act may have harmed many parties, and I plead to the judges who handle my case to give justice for me based on the level of the mistake I have done, and not solely as revenge for our act that has harmed people. But also give me chance to improve myself. Under her original 4-year sentence, Connor could have been eligible for release from Kerobokan prison in 2019, taking into account remission and time already served. With the increase in sentence, she is unlikely now to be freed before 2020. The Bali High Court has today found that Connor, 46, deserves a 5-year sentence and that the 4 years handed down at the lower court was too lenient for her role in the crime. The court found 2 aggravating factors, that Connor had left the victim to die and did not try to help, and that the crime had damaged Bali's tourism image. For this reason they decided to sentence her to more time behind bars at Bali's Kerobokan prison. Connor was not in court for today's verdict but will be devastated by the decision. The court was handing down its decision on the prosecution's appeal against the leniency of her 4-year sentence. The prosecution had demanded 8 years in jail and lodged an immediate appeal when she was sentenced to just half that amount. Presiding Judge Sutoyo said that there was nothing new in Connor's plea to the court not to increase her sentence. The police officer's widow, Ketatarsini, told News Corporation she was disappointed that the sentence was not longer but left the decision to the court. Connor and her British boyfriend, David Taylor, were both found guilty of group violence causing the death of veteran police officer Wayan Sudasa in the early hours of August 17 last year. Taylor, who admitted striking the fatal blows which ended the officer's life but said it was in self-defense, was sentenced to 6 years in jail. His sentence was not appealed. But Connor, who has consistently maintained she played no role in the acts which killed the police officer, has always said her only role was in trying to separate her boyfriend and the officer who were fighting on the beach. And in a letter to the High Court, addressing the prosecution's calls for her to spend more time in jail, Connor appealed to the court not to separate her from her children for longer. She said she believed her 4-year sentence, while hard for her to accept, did address justice for the Balinese people and the victim's family. Connor has not seen her 2 young sons, aged 9 and 11, since shortly before her arrest in August. She had come to Bali to meet Taylor, her lover of just 3 months, who had been forced to leave Australia when his ex-wife withdrew her visa sponsorship of him. He had been told by immigration to leave, so the pair met in Bali. Connor's sons are cared for by her former husband, Anthony Twig Connor in Byron Bay. In her letter, Connor said, "So, let me learn from my mistake, to be a better human being. On one side, I realize that my act have harmed many parties, and I plead to the judges who handle my case to give justice for me based on the level of the mistake I have done, and not solely as revenge for our act that has harmed people. But also give me chance to improve myself." Connor urged the appeal court to take into account the differing roles she played in the crime when compared to her boyfriend. Bali's High Court has increased Australian mother Sara Connor's sentence to 5 years for the fatal assault of a Bali police officer. 2 months after Connor, 46, was sentenced to 4 years over the death of Wayan Sudasa on Kuta Beach in August 2016, 3 High Court judges in Denpasar today added a year on her sentence following an appeal by prosecutors. Connor, who is serving her prison sentence at Korobokan prison, was not in court to hear the decision. Prosecutors argued that Connor should be serving the same jail time as her British boyfriend and co-offender David Taylor, who was sentenced to 6 years over the fatal assault in company of Mr. Sudasa. Mr. Sudasa's bloodied body was discovered on Kuta Beach in the early hours of August 17 last year, having suffered dozens of wounds. Despite repeatedly maintaining her innocence, Connor's then lawyer Robert Quana said in March that she would not appeal her sentence. She had been traumatized by the court process and was worried about the term being increased if she did appeal, he added. Connor wrote to the court in April urging them not to increase the sentence, saying, "This is the most bitter experience and the last one, of its kind, in my life." Taylor became embroiled in a fight with Mr. Sudasa after confronting him over Connor's lost purse on Kuta Beach, which contained about $300. While Connor maintains she did nothing but try to separate Mr. Sudasa and Taylor during the melee, Chief Judge Made Parsec found she effectively pinned him down. The pair later destroyed personal items belonging to Mr. Sudasa and burned the clothes they were wearing on the night of the assault. The sentence handed down in March included the 7 months Connor had already spent in prison, with further reductions possible for good behavior.